My name is Sydney, you know me as your left kidney. I regulate the blood and fluids you give me. Yeah, it's your blood that I wish to filtrate. I strain out all the toxins that you urinate. A stabilizer, the ultimate metabolizer. I balance fluids or you go up like a geyser.
Gotta take care of your kidneys now, 'cause our kidneys work is never ever done.
Have you ever heard of nephritis? Nephritis is the 9th most common cause of death among all women in the U.S. Nephritis is the severe or chronic inflammation of the kidneys, which are right here, that involve the glomeruli. The glomeruli are clusters of capillaries around the ends of kidney tubules, which are thin tubes that carry ultrafiltrate or interstitial tissue. Ultrafiltrate is a solution that bathes and surrounds the tissue cells of multicellular animals. There are 3 different types of nephritis, and they include interstitial nephritis, pyelonephritis, and glomerulonephritis. Each of these different types have unique causes, physiology, and symptoms. But the main system involved in nephritis is the urinary system, which is also known as the renal system. Speaking of the urinary system, what is that? The urinary system is the drainage system in your body that removes the urine. It is composed of 3 main structures that include the kidneys, which are right here, the ureters, right here, and your bladder. What are your kidneys? Your kidneys are 2 bean-shaped organs that lie just below the rib cage, with one on each side of your spine along the posterior wall of the abdominal cavity. The right kidney lies slightly lower than the left kidney. Your kidneys are your body's filters. They function by removing toxins and waste as well as reabsorbing essential substances back into the blood. Each and every day, they filter 200 quarts of your blood and eliminate 2 quarts of waste and excess water. This waste and excess water is referred to as urine. You're probably pretty familiar with it.
So in your kidneys, the functional unit that makes urine is called the nephron. Each of your kidneys contain over 1 million nephrons, and on the model, the nephron is shown here. So this whole section here of the kidney is the nephron. So the job of the nephron is to process blood and form urine. The nephron consists of a renal corpuscle shown in the renal cortex. So this is the renal corpuscle, this is the renal cortex right here, and this is the renal corpuscle unit. So the renal corpuscle is made up of the glomerular capsule, which is the whitish outside covering of the renal corpuscle, and the glomerulus, which is the red section on the inside of the corpuscle. Then the renal tubule is composed of the proximal convoluted tubule, which is the portion of the tubule coming out of the renal corpuscle. Then there is the nephron loop, which is this portion of the nephron right here. So there's a descending limb and an ascending limb, and it's also known as the loop of Henle. And then the distal convoluted tubule, which is shown here, and that empties into the collecting duct. So each of the ducts and the tubule has different roles in filtering out substances to make urine. The fluid filtered in the nephron is called filtrate, and it passes through the renal tubules, through the collecting duct, through the papillary duct, and it forms urine. So thousands of collecting ducts collect fluid from nephrons and empty it into the renal pelvis, which is shown on this model.
The urine collects in the renal pelvis, which is at the center of each kidney. From there, urine feeds into the ureters. As you can see in this diagram, your ureters are slender tubes made of muscle through which urine flows from the kidneys to the urinary bladder. The muscle within the ureters contract when urine flows through them, which pushes urine into the bladder. Because of this, the ureters are responsible for the transportation of urine. As the pressure increases inside the bladder, the distal ends of the ureters close to help prevent backflow of urine as well. 1 tube lies on each side of the bladder.
The urinary bladder is a balloon-shaped organ that lies between the pelvic bones in the pelvis. It's hollow and it stretches with the urine that empties into it, holding between 1.5 and 2 cups of urine. Bladder emptying is regulated by voluntary control. As the bladder fills to capacity, signals are sent to the brain, and a person becomes aware of the need to urinate. Urine voluntarily leaves the bladder through the urethra, which is a passageway connecting the bladder to the external body. Now that we have some background information, let's talk about the 3 different types of nephritis and their causes.
Interstitial nephritis is a type of inflammation of the kidneys that occurs in the spaces between the kidney tubules. Your kidney tubules are responsible for reabsorbing water and secreting substances into the urine in order to be excreted. Typically, interstitial nephritis is caused by an allergic reaction to a drug, the most common being antibiotics, anti-inflammatory drugs, or proton pump inhibitors. If interstitial nephritis is not caused by an allergic reaction, it might be caused by low blood potassium levels, high blood calcium levels, or certain autoimmune disorders. Now let's talk about the physiology of this type of nephritis. The renal tubules function to reabsorb and secrete nutrients. As solutes pass through the tubules, they are either reabsorbed and returned to the bloodstream or secreted as they pass through the tubules and then excreted in the urine. Your renal tubules are very selective. They are controlled only by the plasma reaching a certain concentration known as the renal threshold. Let's talk about the path of filtrate, beginning in the Bowman space of the nephron, which collects the filtrate that passes through the kidneys. From there, filtrate enters the proximal convoluted tubule. The filtrate then travels to the loop of Henle, which creates a concentration gradient so that water can be reabsorbed. From the loop of Henle, filtrate travels to the distal convoluted tubule, which is connected to the collecting duct of the urine of the kidney. This area is responsible for maintaining the pH of the urine to be excreted. Ultimately, interstitial nephritis is due to the inflammation to renal cells. This inflammation leads to the infiltration of inflammatory cells and the release of cytokines. Inflammation damages the kidney tubules, impacting their ability to reabsorb water and decrease urine output. Hey Olivia, what is the other type of nephritis?
Thanks, Justine. Now let's talk about pyelonephritis. Have you ever experienced a UTI? Around 50 to 60% of adult women have experienced a UTI. Pyelonephritis is a type of urinary tract infection that causes inflammation in one or both of the kidneys. It is typically caused by a bacterial infection, usually E. coli, which is normally found within the intestines. The bacteria enters the urethra and travels up to reach the bladder. The infection starts in the bladder, causing a bladder infection called cystitis, and then continues to spread up the ureters and into the kidneys, causing pyelonephritis. Pyelonephritis can also be caused by a structural problem in the urinary tract that prevents the flow of urine, such as kidney stones, tumors, or a complication resulting from surgery of the bladder, kidneys, or urines. Pyelonephritis results in fever, abdominal pain due to inflammation, frequent and painful urination, and hematuria, or bloody urine. In rare cases, the damage caused by pyelonephritis can be great enough to cause permanent kidney scars that can disrupt its normal functioning, causing kidney disease or kidney failure. Pyelonephritis has the potential to spread into the bloodstream if not treated quickly, causing sepsis that triggers inflammation throughout the body, leading to multiple organ failures and even death. Typically, this condition is more common in women. In females, the urethra is closer to the anus than it is in men, which makes it easier for bacteria resident in the anus to enter the urethra. Additionally, the female urethra is shorter than in males, which allows for an easier passage for bacteria to reach the urinary bladder and then the kidneys. Hey Ashley, what's another type of nephritis?
Thanks, Olivia. The third type of nephritis is called glomerulonephritis, which is due to a group of autoimmune disorders that cause inflammation and cell proliferation in the glomerular tissue and other parts of the kidney. Glomerulonephritis mostly affects the nephron, specifically the glomerulus, which is shown here. So as previously stated, the glomerulus is the toughest capillaries, which is located in the glomerular capsule. Glomerulonephritis causes an increased number of neutrophils in the affected area due to the inflammation. Glomerulonephritis involves an interaction between the inflammatory cells and the kidney cells. When then there's an increase of cells in the glomerular tuft, which is shown right here, it is endocapillary, and when the proliferation of cells occurs in the Bowman's capsule, also known as the glomerular capsule, it's called extracapillary. Glomerulonephritis is a common symptom of end-stage renal failure, and it is seen in 25 to 30% of cases. It can be categorized into a primary or secondary form. The primary form is caused by autoimmunity. Diseases that can cause this are systematic lupus erythematosus, Goodpasture syndrome, and IgA nephropathy. The secondary form can be caused by infectious, malignant, or metabolic disorders. Acute infectious causes can normally be traced back to Streptococcus bacteria or other bacteria such as Diplococci and Staphylococci. HIV can also lead to acute glomerulonephritis, and also cause glomerular lesions, which enlarge the kidneys up to 150% of their original size. Glomerulonephritis develops normally 1 to 3 weeks after exposure to this bacteria, and it can be accompanied by hypertension, edema, proteinuria, which is excess protein in the urine, hematuria, which is bloody urine, and hypoproteinemia, which is low blood protein levels, and uremia, which is high blood metabolic waste levels.
Today we talked about nephritis. We reviewed the general anatomy and physiology of the kidneys and the urinary system. We also talked about the 3 different types of nephritis and their distinguishing causes. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and we hope you learned a little bit more about nephritis.